shrunk by the coronavirus. Year on year, India's first quarter GDP is the worst amongst all the major economies of the world. If we take the annualized GDP extrapolated by the April-June quarter of 2020, the India figures are still worse by far compared to every other major economy. And then, if one was to compare quarter-on-quarter growth since the pandemic, India still leads in the economy with the highest negative. If these figures indicate one thing, then that has to be that the Indian economy is in dire straits.
Hello and welcome. You're watching the News Unlocked and our special series Eco Shock 2020, where in a week where the GDP figures quarter to quarter have fallen to an all-time low, massive contraction, we're focusing on various aspects of the economy and the challenges that lie therein. Now, last week, the Reserve Bank of India looked at the financial risks in various sectors, and the one sector that stood out, which was suffering the worst, was that of tourism and hospitality. The sense is that it may take then a year possibly for tourism and the hospitality industry in the country to recover. Facing an uncertain future, lakhs of jobs are at stake, and an industry that contributed $194 billion to the Indian economy in 2019 and which helped India gain the 10th spot globally is now facing its biggest ever crisis. Today, as part of our Eco Shock 2020 series, we're focusing on travel, tourism and hospitality. Take a look first at just how difficult the situation is on the ground.
The economy is in doldrums, and among businesses that have been hit the hardest by COVID are those in the service sector, particularly the ones in travel, aviation and hospitality. Based on preliminary estimates by airlines, the sector may see a 50 to 60% reduction in international traffic and up to a 50% drop in domestic traffic. According to the Directorate General of Civil Aviation, domestic air passenger traffic slumped 82.3% in July compared with the same month a year ago. From January to July, airlines carried a total of 37.28 million passengers, a decline of 54.84% compared to a year ago. And while the trend is likely to continue as long as the pandemic remains a factor, airports have started functioning under strict protocols.
और इन्फ्लक्स अगर बढ़ता है पैसेंजर्स का हमारे पास तो हम उसको इजीली सब सेफ्टी प्रोटोकॉल्स को मेंटेन करते हुए हैंडल कर सकते हैं. पूरा सिस्टम हमारा टचलेस कॉन्टैक्टलेस है.
The pristine beaches of Goa lie bereft of tourists, and all those associated with the industry are finding it hard to sustain themselves.
पेट भरने का अभी क्या को काम ऐसा ही है, आने का बैठने का गैरेज में जाने का इधर
कुछ नहीं, बिजनेस कुछ नहीं है और थोड़े लोगों ने शॉप का रेंटल भी हाफ नहीं किया है, उसमें परेशानी दिक्कत बहुत हो गई.
In Kashmir, the tourism industry has suffered a massive loss calculated at over 1,000 crore rupees in the last 1 year, due both to the situation post-abrogation of special status of Jammu and Kashmir and the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic.
अभी कुछ काम नहीं, वो भी थोड़ा होता है, कभी वो भी टूरिस्ट का ना, वो भी ये लोकल आदमी चल रहा है पर वो भी थोड़ा चलता है. वो काम नहीं जैसा हम काम करते हैं टूरिस्ट के साथ. हमको 2 साल से 3 साल हो गया ये टूरिज्म जो है ना 3 साल से खत्म हो गया है.
The situation is no better in the hills of Uttarakhand. The state has tourism as one of its core industries and has suffered massive losses as tourism was shut down because of COVID. While the state government has now relaxed a few norms for visitors, the inflow of tourists is dismally low.
मसूरी में मुश्किल से 5% होटल खुलें, 5 से 7% खुलें. मेरे ख्याल से 5-10% गेस्ट हाउसेस भी खुले हैं। और पूरे प्रदेश में अगर हम बात करें तो थोड़े मैदानी क्षेत्रों में होटल ज़्यादा खुल गए हैं, 10-15%, 20% खुल गए हैं, लेकिन पहाड़ में तो ना के बराबर खुले हैं। चारधाम यात्रा रूट पे ऑलमोस्ट ठप है, नैनीताल रानीखेत की साइड पे बिल्कुल ऑलमोस्ट ठप ही हैं काम।
Government estimates suggest a loss of revenue to tourism that can range between 72,000 crore rupees and 1.58 lakh crores in 2021. And branded hotels may be the biggest ones hit in the tourism sector, followed by tour operators.
Okay, let's then go to two very high-powered guests to get a sense of the challenges that lie ahead of the travel and tourism sectors and indeed hospitality. I am joined by Puneet Chhatwal, Chairman, CII National Committee on Tourism and Hospitality, MD and CEO of the Indian Hotels Company that builds the Taj brand across the country, and Deep Kalra, co-chairman of that Committee on Tourism and Hospitality at CII and the founder of MakeMyTrip.com. Appreciate both of you joining us. Let's come to you, Puneet. Looking at the hospitality sector, how bad is the situation? Give our viewers a sense of how dire the situation is for you at the moment, or is it slowly, gradually improving?
I think the latter is the right way to say it, because the worst, I think, is behind us. So we have to take a step back and go to the month of March. Till 10th of March, we had a slow decline. From 11th of March till the 21st of March was a rapid decline. Following 21st or 22nd of March with the national curfew, followed by a lockdown on the 24th of March, till almost middle of June, the whole industry came to a standstill and the revenues getting to almost as good as zero. And I think that was the toughest period, the 70-75 days. Then with the extended lockdown, the survival of the industry kept becoming a larger issue. And I think the movie you showed just before you asked the question actually sums it up all very well. If there is one industry that can help the globe to recover fast, which has contributed double-digit to the GDP of the globe, which has contributed also almost 10% to Indian GDP, the figure being at 9%, is the hospitality and tourism industry. And if we want to get out of almost 30% quarter-on-quarter negative GDP growth and a 24% decline in the GDP growth, then this is one sector that will take charge and will recover the fastest, in my opinion. I think anybody's guess today, whether it takes 6 months,
but just to pause, sorry, Mr. Chhatwal, just to press the pause button, in the systemic risk survey carried out by the RBI and quoted in its financial stability report in July 2020, the tourism sector was one of the worst affected. 90% of the respondents foresaw a bleak business scenario for at least the next 6 months. So there seems to be no V-shaped recovery, certainly in the tourism sector. Are you looking therefore in a prolonged period of uncertainty, possibly stretching to a year and beyond?
I'm sorry, I'm a little bit of, thinking on a positive front. I just came back from Europe. You couldn't get a reservation in London in any restaurant on Monday to Wednesday because of the government initiative of Eat Out to help out. Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, the restaurants do anyways well in larger cities like London. So nobody was scared. I was in Germany. It was getting very close to pre-COVID, let's say 50-60% norm. And I don't think anyone would have imagined this was possible in those countries 2 months ago. So I'm very intrigued to see the opening up of the hotels in the capital, in Delhi, and now following up hopefully with Mumbai, how the industry looks like in next 4 to 6 weeks from now.
Interesting. You're giving, in a sense, the glass half full scenario. Deep Kalra, are you equally positive? The fact is the Civil Aviation Ministry says that they're going to increase domestic air flights from about 48% to about 60% by October as the festive season comes. Do you really see tourism picking up? Do you really see travel picking up? Because we're also hearing of some airlines that might even go belly up or close down in the next couple of months.
Yeah, Rajdeep, by nature and by definition, an entrepreneur has got to be optimistic and positive. So I do share that positiveness with Puneet. But I have to tell you that it comes very guarded. And it comes very guarded because even as we see airline sector opening up, domestic airlines are indeed open 25%. International airlines have begun to open through travel bubbles, etc. Domestic hotels, like you said rightfully in your video film, is probably only about 10, 12, 15% at maximum, and that also in certain sectors. But what I'm worried about is actually a false start. And a false start is when we open up sectors in an unbridled manner, in an unchecked manner, there is a lot of pent-up demand. There is no question of pent-up demand for travel. There is not a single person I know who hasn't asked me, when can we travel again? Where is it safe to travel? Where is it safe to go? So there's no question on the demand. People are dying to get out. It's been 5.5 months of being locked up at home. So the reality is people are driving out. Ex-Delhi and ex-Bangalore has seen the last few weekends chock-a-block with every hotel in the vicinity. People have driven a few hours to get there for the weekend, get away. So there's no question that people want to go. The issue is, will this be a start where we take one step forward and 2 steps back? And that is why I'm a very strong advocate for testing for travel, as I call it. I believe we've got to start testing a lot. Cases in India are still growing and the numbers are staggering. So Puneet is absolutely right. I'm sitting in Zurich right now where my son is based and the numbers are small. So it's very easy for people and the government to control. The numbers are, a few hundred every day new cases. We're talking about 75, 80,000 new cases in the country, and we haven't even started opening up. So I'm afraid that if we do not do the right things in terms of testing people when they get onto a flight, when they get through that airport, even when they cross borders or they get into hotels maybe, but definitely through the airports, then that fear will actually come true that you can, the infection actually grows as you travel, because there'll be some people who will be traveling with infection. We all know people are asymptomatic very often. They don't even know they are carriers. Therefore, I would really strongly recommend, and I've been actually working closely with the ministries and recommending to them that please start a testing protocol before travel.
So it's actually a very step-by-step approach, a cautious step-by-step approach that you're advocating because, Mr. Chhatwal, I've just got someone sending me a WhatsApp message that Goa, for example, which is India's prime tourist destination, has registered its highest COVID positive spike today of cases. So the worry is that, is the industry entirely dependent on the curve flattening, to use that word? Is that therefore the uncertain, the X factor that all of you are having to live with, all of us are having to live with in a way?
No, I think as you had also previously on your show, I think it's important to do what Deep is propagating, to encourage more and more testing. I think by keeping the industry shut, the curve is not going to get flattened. And the curve did not go up to 60, 80,000 just because hotels and bars were open. So, the glass is half empty or half full. I always say, my glass is perpetually ready to be refilled. So I think that's one way of looking at it, that by shutting down the industry, we did not achieve the flattening of the curve. So if it is opening up or if the numbers are going up, it's not just because the hotels have opened. The hotels were in the service of the nation by hosting medical staff, hosting quarantine guests, for the safe haven for millions of people, which have been served in the last 5 months. And I still believe that it's one of the safest places to be in because we have the best of protocols in place, especially in the upper upscale and luxury segment. I think one feels much safer than being confronted even in the buildings where you live, and God knows who comes and who goes out there.
Right. You know, that's interesting because we've got pubs and restaurants, pubs particularly, that are likely to open in Delhi, for example, from the 9th of September. Do you believe, Deep Kalra, that the government at some stage is going to have to bite the bullet and say, look, the curve is not flattening at the moment, but we need to take a chance because too many lives, dare I say, livelihoods are at stake. Until now, the focus was on lives. As the tourism season starts, lakhs of jobs at stake. Should the government, in your view, bite the bullet and say, now's the time to focus on livelihoods?
Absolutely, Rajdeep. There's no question about it. In fact, I'm with Puneet in saying that we've already been too late. By keeping some hotels shut and some open, some cities shut and some open, some states having quarantine requirements and some not, we have actually really, crippled customer confidence. People who wanted to travel have not been able to because they're unclear whether they need an e-pass, whether they'll be held at borders, what will happen to them. So I think firstly, we need a uniform set of protocols across all states. This has got to come from the top. It's got to come from the center saying, listen, we have to be open, but we'll be open for travel and tourism in a safe manner. And therefore, I say testing. For international travel, please do the, RT-PCR test. It takes 6 hours or overnight to get results. Please do it. It costs 2,400 rupees. It's a small fraction of the cost of that ticket or that trip that you need. Most countries are looking at this. Most countries are accepting tests either when people come in. India, I think, has taken such a bold and a fantastic step by accepting a negative RT-PCR report and avoiding quarantine when you come into the country. It started with New Delhi. The process is working very smoothly. It's moved to Mumbai. That's the way to open up international tourism. Now we need reciprocity. We need the other countries who are sending people here and we are letting them come in. They have to allow our people in if they carry a similar certificate from one of our labs that's approved by NABL. So I think that we must insist on. We should leverage the travel bubble and say we need this. For domestic travel, perhaps too expensive, but there's rapid testing. Yes, it's not 100% accurate, but it's better than zero. So your rapid antigen testing costs just a few hundred rupees. It must be done for domestic travel. It will give people a lot of confidence to board that plane, that everyone on this plane has been tested and is negative as best as we know, maybe with 96% accuracy, which is better than zero. Right now, we are going blind. And it's scary that, if we see a spurt, then I will not be surprised if there'll be a shutdown again by MHA of hotels across certain states or across the country. So I really want to make sure that the start that we do is well thought through and we don't have to go back. So it shouldn't be a case of one step forward and two steps back. That will be an even bigger disaster for the industry, which is reeling. You're absolutely right. This industry was, dependent on these 6 months from October to March is pretty much most of the industry. And for the hills, it was the summer. The hills have lost it sadly, but at least for the rest of the country, whether it's, Rajasthan or whether it's UP, Kerala, we've got Goa, just tremendous tourism potential. Let's not kill it, by not thinking this through.
Puneet Chhatwal, Deep Kalra, for giving us the big picture and telling us the challenges that lie ahead and importantly offering solutions. Thank you very much for joining me here on this special. Now remember, these are the big players, but what about small restaurants? What about them? And I want to turn to another guest because Riaz Amlani now joins me from Mumbai. MD Impresario Handmade Restaurants, runs the very popular social cafe in Mumbai. You're also trustee of the National Restaurant Association of India. Riaz, the small players, whether it's small hotels or indeed small restaurants like yours, what are the challenges that you are facing? Do you see solution? Do you see hope now that Delhi is planning to open up pubs by next week? Mumbai hasn't. Do you believe the time has come even for Mumbai to bite the bullet and open up restaurants?
Well, Rajdeep, the fact of the matter is everything else is open. The only things that are not open right now are schools, gyms, hotels have just beginning to open up. Everything else is open up, and so it just makes sense for restaurants to be opened up. We have submitted to the various government, states as well as center, a 1,000-page SOP, right from receiving guests to receiving goods in our in the back of the house and front of the house. So we've been prepared for it for a very, very long time. The challenge is that, each state is opening it up in its own particular way, and it's perfectly understandable. But, with 50% occupancy and social distancing norms, it is going to be really, really difficult for restaurants to even make ends meet. And in a sense that opening up in this
so is it a question? That's the question.
Yes, go ahead.
So Riaz, is it a question of just survival? Is it now for restaurants to open by next month as the tourism season, the October to March festive season starts, open up for survival? Many of them otherwise will just collapse if this continues for another 3 to 4 months.
Absolutely right, Rajdeep.
Is it first about survival now?
It is about survival. It is about the jobs that we're generating. It's about normalizing the process. Look, we have to learn to live with the virus. It is very, very important now that we practice social distancing. We wear our masks. We make sure that we protect each other and ourselves when we are out. And you can follow the same protocols in restaurants. There's no reason why when you're seated in a restaurant, you can't have a glass of wine with your pasta, or you can't have a beer with your burger. It's not going to exponentially increase your risk. Right? Stepping out does involve a certain amount of risk, but those risks can be mitigated by actually following protocol and by restaurants following the SOPs, which we've been prepared for the last 4 months now.
No, but
we really, really can't wait to have our guests back. Even though
but Riaz,
we will still continue to bleed in this current environment, but we have to really start opening up and start welcoming guests through our doors and start normalizing the process, because that fear is always going to stay. And as more people come in, the fear will slightly go away, and we'll learn to live with the virus. Of course, we'll have to be careful. Of course, we'll have to take precautions. But if we don't do this, and if we don't allow restaurants to open, you're looking at the decimation of one of the largest employers in the country.
Well, I think you've, in a sense, again spoken about the need to open up now to instill an element of confidence. You've got to move from fear to confidence. I hope that all restaurants will follow the protocol of social distancing as they open, a clear protocol across restaurants in this country. Riaz Amlani, you've given us the concerns that you have and the need to open up, as have our other participants. We focused on a critical sector today. Lakhs of jobs, livelihoods are at stake at the moment. Delhi's taken the first step, opening up pubs now next week. Will the rest of the country follow? Riaz Amlani, thanks so much for joining us, and to all other guests also, thanks for being with us. And to you, the viewers, we will continue to focus on EcoShock 2020, because we believe that that's the big story of our times. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, stay well.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.